Isaac Jogues was born in Orleans, France in 1607 and became a Jesuit priest at the age of 26. At the age of 29, he requested to be a missionary in the New World, and he sailed out of France and arrived in Quebec on July 2, 1636. For the next 5 years, St. Isaac Jogues and his fellow Jesuit missionaries worked with the Huron Indians, learning their language, teaching them the Christian faith, baptizing and building a mission center and chapels, at all times risking their lives. With the mission center needing supplies, St. Isaac Jogues travels back to Quebec by canoe. In Quebec, St. Isaac Jogues teams up with René Goupil, who was a Jesuit missionary. On August 1st, St. Isaac Jogues and St. René Goupil, with a group of 40 Huron Indians, including Ahat Sistari, the Hurons' best warrior, a baptized Christian, left Quebec in canoes with new supplies and goods. The next day, the group was ambushed by a war party of Iroquois, who were enemies of the Huron. Most of the Huron fled into the woods. Some were killed, and the rest, including St. Isaac Jogues and St. René Goupil, were captured. While the attack was happening, René Goupil said, "Father, may God be praised. He has allowed this. He has wished it. May his holy will be done. I love it. I will it. I cherish and embrace it with all my heart." St. Isaac Jogues heard his confession and gave him absolution, not knowing what was going to happen to them. When the Iroquois returned from hunting down the Hurons who fled, they immediately started beating René with clubs, ripping his fingernails out and crushing his fingers. René bore all this with much patience and courage. An Indian who was badly wounded and was about to be executed was given baptism by St. Isaac Jogues before he was killed. The Iroquois war party heads back to the village, takes the captured goods and the prisoners. When they arrived in the first Iroquois village, they were immediately shown cruelty and torture. St. Isaac Jogues said this of René Goupil: "Having fallen under a hailstorm of blows headed upon us with the clubs and iron rods, and not being able to get up, he was carried half dead to the scaffold where we had been placed in the middle of the village. He was in such a piteous state that he would have moved even cruelty itself to compassion. His body was livid with bruises, so that one could see in his face only the whites of his eyes. He would be beaten again, but the entire time he demonstrated patience and gentleness. The second and third village they passed through, they were tortured again. They were forced to run the gauntlet, beaten by clubs, whipped, and both had their thumbs cut off and fingers chewed off. As this was happening, they kept saying the words, 'Jesus, Mary, Joseph.'" The two arrived at the Mohawk village of Ossernanon on August 15th. For 6 weeks, Isaac Jogues and René Goupil were prisoners at the village, but were allowed to walk around inside and outside of the village. For those 6 weeks, even though they were still very weakened from their beatings and injuries, they prayed the rosary every day and blessed the village and the Indian children. René would teach the children the sign of the cross by blessing them with the sign and carving a cross into the trees. On September 29th, the feast day of St. Michael, Isaac Jogues and René Goupil were praying the rosary outside the village when an Indian warrior came up to René and tomahawked him in the head. This was done because he had blessed a child with the sign of the cross. Before the Indians could finish him off, Isaac Jogues ran to his side and gave him absolution. In his last dying breath, René said the words Jesus as the final blow came. St. Isaac Jogues was forced to go back to the village, and the body of St. René Goupil was dragged to the ravine and dumped there. The next morning, St. Isaac Jogues, knowing that the same warriors who had killed René were looking to kill him too, courageously searched for the body of René Goupil. Finding the body in the ravine near the stream, he placed the body under water and weighted it down with large rocks to conceal it. He planned the next day to come back with a shovel to give him a proper Christian burial. That night, it rained heavily, and the stream became a raging torrent. The next day, St. Isaac Jogues returned, but could not find the body of René Goupil. The stream had taken the body. In the springtime, St. Isaac Jogues searched downstream and in the surrounding forest and found the bones of René Goupil. He buried the bones in the ravine, hoping to take them back to France if he was ever let free. In August of 1643, A full year after he was captured, he was taken on a fishing expedition, which had to pass through a Dutch settlement. The commander of the settlement urged St. Isaac Jogues to escape, and would have had a boat ready for him to escape in. St. Isaac Jogues, wanting only to do God's will, asked for a night to pray over the decision. In his prayer, he weighed all the reasons for fleeing and for staying, and he finally decided that it was God's will for him now to escape. St. Isaac Jogues was transported to New Amsterdam, which is today New York City, and then sailed across the Atlantic to France. When he arrived back in France, he was considered a celebrity of sorts. Everyone wanted to see him, from the Queen of France to Pope Urban VII. The Pope gave him the title of Martyr of Christ, which was never done for a still living person. After much prayer and discernment, asked to be sent back to the Iroquois as a missionary. In the late summer, sickness had broken out in the tribe, and a blight had fallen on the crops. The Mohawk blamed St. Isaac Jogues for the bad luck they had. They were determined to wreak vengeance on him, and warriors were sent out to capture him. The news of this hostility spread rapidly, and though fully aware of the danger, Jogues continued on his way to Ossernanon, though all the Hurons and others who were with him fled, except John Lalonde. The Iroquois met him near Lake George, stripped him naked, and slashed him with their knives, beat him, and then led him to the village. On October 18, 1646, when entering a cabin, they were both struck with a tomahawk and afterwards decapitated. Their heads were fixed on the palisades and their bodies thrown into the Mohawk River. On June 29, 1930, Pope Pius XI declared Isaac Jogues, René Goupil, and John Lalonde martyrs and saints of the Catholic Church. Their feast day is celebrated October 16th.